gentlemen, Fender once again from an undisclosed location on Mars. That's right, we're at Mars with the fabulous Kentucky Headhunters. We have Richard and Fred, man, and what a very special honor it is for me to sit in between these two guys and get to interview them. So, Richard, tell me a little bit about the Headhunters. When did you all actually get started, and was the Kentucky Headhunters your original band name?
No, it wasn't. Let me say that Greg Martin and Doug Phelps, who are in the band with us, would love to be here, but Doug's coaching his girls' basketball game, and Greg is on an airplane on his way from Mexico. He's been on the blues cruise with Jimmy Hall and Delbert McClinton and a bunch of our buddies. He loves to play that guitar. He's been out there.
He's always playing.
Always loved. The Kentucky Headhunters actually morphed from a band that we had. We had, of course, when we were little kids, we started our first band, and it was called Truce for about a couple of years. I think, we got a card from it, and it was four guys in the band, but the card only had 3 because that's all the print shop had on there, So we went from that quickly to a band called Aftermath. When you're first starting, you come up with all these names and you want to have something unique and different. I think we stole that from the Rolling Stones album, Aftermath. And then we finally settled on the name Itchy Brother, which a lot of the folks around Kentucky and Indiana will remember from, I guess, especially playing around Soundstage in Louisville, Kentucky, on Main Street, 119 West Main Street, I think was the address. And that was a period of time where we cut our teeth as rock and roll musicians. Fred, Greg, Anthony, our cousin, who's no longer with us, retired after 39 years, playing off and on with us last year. And Fred, Anthony, Greg, and I started out playing in about 1968. Which is when we acquired this farmhouse, that our grandma let us use. And we're able to, create our own little sound. We started out right from the beginning going, okay, and we never really sat and talked about it. We just, we listened to different types of things from the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Roy Orbison, all the early rock and roll music of our time, Elvis Presley. And all that came together with I guess, we learned a lot about the blues, from those acts. Listen, Greg's brother lived in Louisville, Gary, and he would send albums down for us to listen to. Like we had the RBQ's first album.
Wow.
The Yardbirds, bands like those.
Cream.
Cream, and we sat and listened to that stuff. Jimi Hendrix's Experience album, and we picked up a lot from that. That was just a little bit different shift from the Beatles and the Stones, More and more, you realize that, these guys didn't create all this on their own. It was something else. So we got to digging a little bit, and then you go through a phase where you get back into some pop scene that was going on, and then you come back to that. But Itchy Brother was our original group, and it was together from 1968, basically the same guys off and on until about 1981 or 2. And then we actually started to travel to Nashville, which we had avoided like the plague. And it was just, it was a different time. I mean, the days of Nashville when we were doing the rock and roll thing, there wasn't room for any kind of rock and roll in that town. And I mean, needless to say, guys like Roy Orbison, people were being successful out of there, but as pop stars. And we actually started to go down. Fred took a gig during the late 70s. We in the mid 70s went down to Atlanta, Georgia. With a guy named Tom Long, and they brought us down there, and there was an opportunity with Capricorn Records, that we were working on. And during that period of time, Jimmy Carter started to run for president. So Phil Walden, who owned Capricorn, and the Allman Brothers, everybody involved in the whole Capricorn Southern rock scene got very involved in that, the election. So we were kind of sitting down there in an apartment, man, you know, with not too much food and an old potato chip truck, and hoping something good would happen. And then Gary, Gary and them crashed. You know, Leonard Skinner crashed, and it kind of just put a dark blanket over everything at that point. And you kind of realized that there was something deafening about what had been going on in the South. That kind of like come to an abrupt end almost.
So that was kind of like a major obstacle that you all had to keep on pushing forward and
Absolutely.
achieve.
Yeah, we actually loaded up our truck a couple of days after Ronnie and them crashed and came home because it was quite obvious, you know, even though we were kids, it was obvious that, you know, there was not the time to try to be getting a record deal. You know, it's like walking in a funeral home and saying, hey, we got a band, you know, and it's like something like that. So we came on home and kind of licked our wounds. And then in 1978, we met a fellow named Mitchell Fox who was working for a band, Led Zeppelin. And he was a young cat, same age as me, and had been hanging out with them in bad company and all such. And a real suave talking guy, and, you know, plugged in, a regular New York Jew boy, you know.
Yeah.
He had it all down. And he came down to see us in Kentucky, and we actually came to Soundstage in Louisville. And, you know, I mean, he was rude at first because he'd been, you know, saying, you know, we work for a band that nobody ever says no to. You get that way, I guess. But anyway, he came down and, you know, was going to see the band like at 10 o'clock at night at Soundstage and fly back on a red eye that night. And he wound up staying a couple of days with us down there, and we became great friends. And still today, he is, even though he doesn't manage the band anymore, he's one of our best friends. He managed the band for 28 years.
Wow.
And lives in Nashville now, has a family and a beautiful daughter and that sort of thing. But anyway, you know, he took our tapes and things to England and played them for Led Zeppelin's manager, Peter Grant, and Peter thought there was something there, you know, and so right when they were getting ready to present them to Led Zeppelin, we would have been, had it worked, and I'm sure Peter would have pulled it off, we'd have been the first American band on Swan Song Records.
Well, you guys had a big following in the European market, didn't you?
Yeah, after the fact, this was later on with the Headhunters, you know. Of course, that thing didn't work out with Led Zeppelin because John Bonham died and dissolved all the label. Once again, some guy dies and it happens. But a few years after that, we got the itch to do it. We'd been working down in Nashville some different things. You know, some of us backing up musicians, some of us songwriting, that sort of thing. And we decided to you know, give it another shot. You know, lick our wounds again. Let's go on. You know, and
well, we were only just playing blues. This time was only playing blues music, strictly
blues rock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but with more Jimmy Reed feel than like somebody like that kind of rock. You know, it's more shuffle and more roots oriented. Everything we did.
We drifted from the rock and roll. I guess maybe it's from the Led Zeppelin thing happening, and just like we finally went, hell, let's just go back and learn about real music, you know. Just quit trying to get a record deal or whatever. And the more we studied that, the more people wanted to talk to us about doing records and stuff. Led Zeppelin's calling.
Led Zeppelin, right here.
Yeah, we'll talk to them folks later. All right, so anyway, you know, we decided to put our old band back together, and one of the guys, Anthony at the time, couldn't get involved in it, so we brought a fellow that Greg had been working with in Nashville named Doug Phelps come up, and Fred and I went to see him play with him actually at the Dollar General Store convention.
Really?
Yeah, in Scottsville, Kentucky, and we went and checked him out. And Greg said, "Come on down and watch this guy," you know. And he had great moves on stage. He was, you know, he was kind of like, you could tell he was just a great fella that would fit in with us. And so we started working on our music again, really getting involved in the roots thing. And you know, oddly enough, we didn't want to call it Itchy Brother anymore, which had been the name for years and years that most people will remember. And we decided to go with the Headhunters because of Muddy Waters was nicknamed that. His group was nicknamed, you know, the Headhunters.
Who came up with it?
Actually, I think Greg said, you know what,
Yeah.
I call it the Headhunters, you know, because it's got, you know, he explained the story. He'd been reading a book called Deep Blues by Robert Palmer, and thought that was a cool name, and we all liked it because it was kind of backwoods and kind of, we weren't thinking of the blues connotation really as much as we were just you know, us being hillbillies, you know, whatever, you know, but anyway, we went with that, and Fred, Doug, Greg, and I started working together in about, what was it, about to say 84, Greg?
About 86.
Was it 86?
Yeah.
And really, I mean, we really went back to school, learning how. Fred and I almost had a fight one night, man. It's the greatest thing he ever did for me. Is we were in the practice house, there's two of us, and he made me learn Chuck Berry's rhythm like Chuck Berry. I mean, we stayed up here for hours, and I mean, I was resistant. I was lazy, and I finally overcame it, and he kept
Boy,
helping
it was.
me.
It was Rod Stewart's version of Sweet Little Rock and Roller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I asked you to play that rhythm to that, and you started in like we always play. I said, I don't think it's like that. He's playing shuffle against the eighth note, which gives it that,
Yeah.
you know, and that's where he honed in on that, and it,
After much persuasion.
yeah.
Because, I mean, all of our life, we played like a VFW band on Johnny B. Good, you know.
Yeah, like the
It's
drums.
beats
and
against
Johnny B.
Yeah,
Good.
that's kind of a typical sound that you would hear out of pretty much any
A
band.
Yeah, bar
VFW
band.
band.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
play all straight eights.
Yeah.
So there you go, folks. All you young bands out there, if you want to do good like the Kentucky Headhunters, Blackstone Cherry, you need to go back and study the roots, man, because that's where it all originates.
Yeah.
Back at the roots.
And believe me, we're just as lazy as you guys are. We didn't want to do it either. I mean, Fred fought me almost to make me get that right. But once I got it right, I mean, you could literally just have a rhythm guitar going, doing that, and you can make the whole room
Yeah,
move.
it
you know,
makes a difference.
that's when you realize what it takes to make it.
And
When
you know,
start
it
seeing
helps a
things.
lot when you got a drummer like this.
That's right. It don't hurt.
This guy's tighter than Dick Headband when he plays.
Yeah,
You
man.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I was listening the other night. Fred was talking about himself the other day, and he said, man, my meter, you know, this and that. And I was listening to, actually, I talked to some guy on the internet, and he was talking about how solid Fred was. I think sometimes drummers are very conscientious of their own selves, so much sometimes that they don't even realize how good they are, you know. And I think that's Fred's case sometimes.
I'd put Fred up against a metronome.
Yeah, he's
I'm
pretty
gonna do
darn
that
good.
now.
Yeah, he's pretty good
Metronome
drum,
starts
man.
smoking, man.
Well, you know,
Who, Buddy Rich was on a Tonight Show one night, and Johnny Carson, they was big buddies, and they was sitting there, and Johnny's bouncing that pencil, and Buddy looked there and said, I got a watch that keeps better time than that.
He's sure now.
Yeah.
And but you know, it's like the main thing I think about the Headhunters is the feel thing. You know, and that comes a lot from Fred, man. Because I mean, Fred, you know, my son, of course, from Blackstone Cherry, you know, Fred, he's a great drummer, and in time he'll learn to make a drum speak back to him. You know, he's like a showy bad boy right now, and he's all over the world. But it's like to sit and just actually make a drum speak to you.
Well, he
knows
knows about that stuff, but right now, you know, I mean, like
Young, you know, you
well, you
don't
can't
fool with that.
can't play that and be on top 40, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or whatever, you know, out there. It's
Yeah, you can't be on top doing it. You know,
He just saw Papa Joe Jones, a video on him. Now that's his hero now. You know?
Yeah.
yeah.
So Papa
But
Joe.
it's like when we were young, we couldn't even take time good. But people didn't care because we had that thrashing rock and roll vengeance energy that bands all had, you know. And I mean, you can even watch videos of Led Zeppelin with Bonham playing, and it would do this.
That
you
goes.
know.
The stuff goes a long way, but you have to get back to comes down to it.